Mila had always carried faith quietly in her heart. Not the loud kind people displayed in church pews or the kind that came with rehearsed prayers. Her faith was a soft thing, gentle, sincere. She believed God watched over her, that He saw her tears even when she tried to hide them from the world. But life, with all its unexpected storms, had slowly begun to wear her down. She once used to laugh easily. Her home used to feel warm, filled with plans and dreams taped to the refrigerator door. But now the walls felt tight, the air heavy with silence. She was alone, truly alone. Her parents lived far away, her friendships faded under the weight of adulthood, and there was no one she could pour her heart out to. Not really. She had lost her job 3 months ago when the company suddenly downsized. The manager had looked at her with apologetic eyes, as though he were handing her not just a notice, but the unraveling of her security. "We're sorry, Mila, we really are. You're a good worker, one of the best. It's just the budget." That sentence continued to echo in her mind even now. Bills did not slow down for grief. Rent did not wait for hope to return. And food, even the simplest meals, became a calculation of, how long can I stretch this? She'd tried to stay strong at first. Tried to tell herself that God had a plan, that everything had a reason. But something happens when every day feels like a battle you are fighting alone. Faith becomes like a candle in the wind, flickering, trembling, threatening to go out. And one quiet evening, the weight became too much. It was raining that night. Not a storm. Just a slow, steady rainfall that tapped gently on the window like fingers reminding her of the world outside. The room was dim, the lights off to save electricity, and the only sound was her own breathing. She sat on the floor, knees pulled close to her chest, her arms wrapped around herself like she was holding on to the last piece of strength she had left. Tears had already carved paths down her cheeks, but she hadn't even noticed when they started. "I'm trying," she whispered into the silence. "I am really, really trying. I just don't know what else to do." Her voice broke. She pressed her forehead to her knees. The loneliness in the room felt like a second presence, something heavy, suffocating. "God, if you hear me," her voice shook, barely louder than a breath, "please say something. Anything. I just need to know you haven't forgotten me. Please. I am drowning." For a long moment, nothing happened. No warmth, no voice, no sudden miracle, just the rain, and the quiet, and her heartbeat. Too loud, too fast. She closed her eyes and let her tears fall freely. Because what more could she do? She had given everything she had to hold herself together, and all she had left were prayers that sounded like desperation. She wondered if maybe she was just talking to the air. Maybe her prayers rose only as high as her ceiling and fell back into her own hands. Minutes passed, maybe hours. Time didn't matter. At some point, her breathing slowed. Not calm, just exhausted. The kind of tiredness that sits in your bones. And then, suddenly, her phone vibrated beside her. She glanced at it, her eyes swollen from crying. A number she didn't recognize. No name, no message, just the ring. Her first instinct was to ignore it. She wasn't in the mood to talk to anyone. She didn't have the strength to pretend she was okay. But something inside her, gentle, subtle, unmistakable, nudged her heart. Pick up the call. Her hand trembled as she reached for the phone. She hesitated, the ringing echoing strangely loud in the stillness of the room. She pressed the screen to answer. Hello. Her voice was fragile, barely there. The pause on the other end was brief, but in that moment, she felt the world slow. Then a warm, steady voice spoke. A voice she did not recognize. A voice calm and filled with something she could not explain. "Hi. I'm sorry to call out of nowhere. I don't know you, but God put something on my heart." Mila's breath caught. Her chest tightened. Not in pain, but in shock. Her fingers curled around the phone, as if holding it tighter would steady her. The voice continued, gentle, slow, as though careful to not break her further. "He wants you to know you are not forgotten. You are not alone. I don't know what you're going through, but God says, my child, hold on. I am closer than your breath. Do not let go. Help is already on the way." The words hit her like a wave, warm, overwhelming, indescribable. Her mouth opened, but no sound came. Tears filled her eyes again. but these tears were not the heavy, aching ones from before. These were tears of recognition. Relief. Something awakening. Her voice broke, and she covered her mouth with her free hand as sobs rose again. But this time, it was like her heart was being cradled. The stranger continued softly, I don't know why, but I felt like I had to call. God really wants you to know that tonight. You are seen, and this is not the end for you. Mila cried. Openly, freely, not because she was still drowning, but because someone, had reached down into the waters and touched her shoulder. She wanted to ask who they were. How they knew. Why tonight, of all nights. But before she could speak again, the line clicked. The call ended. She sat there, staring at her phone, the words echoing in her soul. It was not just a phone call. It was not random. This was her answer. The prayer she whispered into the quiet did not disappear. Heaven heard it, and heaven replied. Right there, in that ordinary room, something holy had stepped in. And though nothing around her had changed yet, something inside her had finally begun to live again. The next morning came quietly, with sunlight slipping gently across the room like a soft hand brushing her awake. Mila opened her eyes slowly, expecting the same heaviness that had greeted her for weeks. But instead, there was a strange calm, subtle, delicate, yet unmistakably present. It wasn't that her problems had disappeared. The bills were still stacked on her kitchen counter. Her bank account was still a string of painfully small numbers. Her future remained uncertain. But something had changed inside her. Hope had returned. Not loud, not blinding, but like a candle with a steady flame. She got up slowly, as if rediscovering the movement of her own body, and walked to the window. The rain had stopped. The world outside glistened with morning light. The air looked washed, like everything had been cleansed in the night. She breathed in deeply. For the first time in a long time, it felt like she could breathe fully. She made tea. Nothing special, just hot water and a tea bag, but it felt different. She took each sip with awareness, with presence, with gratitude. She sat at her small kitchen table, watching the steam rise like prayer made visible. As she sat there, a thought repeated gently in her heart. I am not alone. She didn't need to prove it. Didn't need to explain it. She simply knew. Later in the day, she stepped outside to get some air. Her clothes were simple, her hair pulled back loosely, but there was a quiet glow about her, something soft, something peaceful. As she walked down the steps of her apartment building, her neighbor, Mrs. Dalton, an older woman with silver hair and warm eyes, spotted her. Oh, Mila, dear, she called out. I was just headed to the store. I'm picking up a few things. Can I bring you anything? Mila blinked. She had barely exchanged more than polite greetings with the woman before. And yet here she was, offering help at the exact moment Mila truly needed it. She almost refused. Her pride still lingered, but something whispered. Let yourself be cared for. Actually, she said softly, yes. That would mean a lot. Thank you, Mrs. Dalton smiled warmly, as though she already knew this was a sacred moment. When Mila returned to her apartment, she found a message waiting on her phone. The sender was a friend she hadn't heard from in months, someone whose life had simply drifted away from hers. Hey, I don't know why, but you've been on my mind. Are you okay? Mila stared at the message, her heart trembling, not from sadness, but from realization. God was moving, not all at once, not in dramatic ways, but in gentle touches, human hands he had guided. She wrote back, and for the first time in months, she allowed someone to see her. They talked, deeply, honestly, about her struggles, her loneliness, her hope returning. And her friend listened, not with pity, but with presence. Later that afternoon, an email notification appeared. She almost ignored it, assuming it was another promotion or reminder. But when she opened it, she froze. It was from a company she had applied to weeks ago. A job she assumed was lost, forgotten, or given to someone far more qualified. We'd like to schedule an interview with you. Please let us know your availability. Her breath caught. Her eyes filled instantly with tears, not of fear, but of amazement. This exact timing, was not coincidence. Her phone call last night. Her neighbor offering help. Her friend reaching out. The interview opening now. It was a pattern, a message, a movement of divine hands. Her heart understood before her mind could form words. God was with her. God had always been with her. That night, when she lay down, she did not cry in exhaustion or frustration. She cried in gratitude. The room was dark, but it was no longer heavy. The silence was no longer empty. There was presence in it now, warm, loving, sacred. She clasped her hands together, not out of tradition, but out of love. "Thank you," she whispered. No long speech, no desperate plea, just gratitude. Her breathing slowed, her heart steadied, her spirit rested, and then, a voice, not heard with her ears, but within the deepest place inside her, spoke. Not dramatic, not loud, not frightening, just steady, certain, loving. "My child, I never left you." She closed her eyes, tears slipping softly down her cheeks. "When you cried, I held you. When you fell, I placed my hand beneath you. I allowed darkness only long enough for you to recognize the light I was sending." The words filled her soul like warmth spreading through cold hands. "You are not alone. You never were. I have been guiding every step. The season you feared would break you is the season that is shaping you. Trust me, now more than ever. Help is not coming. Help has already begun." Mila placed a hand over her heart. And she knew, without doubt, without question, without needing proof, that God was speaking to her. The struggles had not been proof of abandonment. They were the soil where her faith was taking deeper root. The darkness had not been punishment. It was preparation to see the light clearly when it came. And now the dawn had begun. She rested in that truth. The next day, she walked into her interview, not with fear, but with calm confidence. She spoke clearly, kindly, sincerely. She didn't pretend to be someone else. She simply let her true self shine. And the interviewers noticed. They didn't just see a job candidate. They saw someone who had endured. Someone who had strength. Someone who had risen. When she left the building, her heart was quiet. Not nervous, not worried. Just peaceful. God was in control. Whatever happened next, she knew this. She was seen. She was held. She was loved. She was guided. The call she received that night, it didn't just lift her. It awakened something powerful inside her. Something holy. Something unshakable. Hope, faith, confidence in God's presence. And she walked forward into her new chapter knowing. This was not the end. This was the beginning of the story God always had for her.